For another season, Formula One winter testing is done and dusted. It's all over. The checkered flag has fallen, and in just 2 weeks' time, 2 weekends' time, we head to Melbourne for race 1 of the 2020 season. Time flies. It really does. I'm still kind of in 2019 mode, but hey, better get our skates on because the season's about to start. But before we start looking forward to Melbourne, though we will, we've got to analyse today's performances. Now, I understand testing is over. We've seen all the laps, all the data, but I've still got to go through today's analysis before we have a look at the entire 2 weeks in general. So, quickly before, I'm going to do things slightly differently today, obviously, because it's the final day of testing. My plan until the Melbourne Grand Prix, so between now and 2 weeks' time, is just going to be a bit of stuff building up for the season. We'll do a review, what we've learned from testing. The answer is not a fat lot, but there are a few different things we have learned. The DAS system, the tracing point, different little things like that to help some of you get up to speed a little bit. And I am sure there will be plenty of people jumping on the Formula One hype train thanks to Drive to Survive Season 2. I managed to catch a couple of episodes today. I think I've seen 4 up to the Mercedes Germany kerfuffle, if you want to call it that. So that's the plan, just kind of help people ease into the season. Nothing too crazy, nothing too over the top, just get back into that Formula One spirit, if that kind of makes sense. But I am planning on doing a separate video, again, covering what we've learned from testing. So today's one is just about today. And as you can see on the screen, for the final time this season, here are your times. Here is your grid. 14 runners today, 2 representatives of Red Bull, Mercedes, Renault, Haas. What did we learn? Well, you might notice on the tyre section, quite a few teams running the C4 and 5 tyres, with every single team recording their fastest lap of testing so far. Their fastest lap on the C4 and 5 tyres, except Alex Albon, who had some issues again for Red Bull, just about sneaking over that 100 lap line. But it was difficulties for them today. But enough messing. We'll go through the times. I've kind of been avoiding that for the first couple of minutes. You've seen it on screen. It's pretty straightforward. And you know by now, general caveat, you can't read into it too much. Take everything with a pinch of salt. I don't have to say that anymore. It's all over. Right. Valtteri Bottas, P1, on the final day of testing, meaning Mercedes topped 3 days in total, so half of the days of the 2020 winter testing period. Max Verstappen was P2, Daniel Ricciardo up in P3, Charles Leclerc a much, much better day for Ferrari today. I think that was their strongest day of the entire season so far. Really impressed with what they were able to do. Lewis Hamilton, P5. Esteban Ocon, P6. Sergio Perez in the tracing point ahead of what you'd expect to be his midfield rival Carlos Sainz. George Russell in the Williams, P9. They're still looking strong. I'm looking forward to seeing where they're going to be in a couple of weeks' time. Danny Kvyat and the AlphaTauri rounding out the top 10. And I'm going to hit myself already because it's AlphaTauri. I know I will get there. I'll spend the next 2 weeks trying to revise this. AlphaTauri. I'm trying. Romain Grosjean P11 for Haas. Kimi Räikkönen P12 for Alfa Romeo. Kevin Magnussen P13 for Haas. And Alex Albon P14 for Red Bull. Laps completed. Well, we've got a real vast array of different drivers today. Valtteri Bottas, 77 for the car, number 77. 44 laps for Max Verstappen in the afternoon. Daniel Ricciardo, 65. Charles Leclerc, the most of any driver throughout the entire winter period, 177 laps. And if you include the laps where he didn't set a time, so the laps that he went out, did pretty much a lap, but then came back in the pit straight away. If you include those as well, over 184 laps completed for Charles Leclerc today. Almost 4 Grand Prix distances. That is astonishing. He needs a lie down for a couple of days, that's for sure. The previous record was Romain Grosjean, 158. So this blows it out of the water pretty much. Another 20 laps on top. Fair play, Charles. And Ferrari's pace today, you can see from the gap. And I know the quickest lap time of all, it's a waste of time statistic. I will keep banging that drum. Yes, Bottas technically is quickest. Is Ricciardo the third quickest? Probably not. Is he 8,000th off a Mercedes? Probably not. But long run pace is a little bit easier to track. And actually, Charles Leclerc's long run pace today looked very good compared to what we've seen from Mercedes yesterday in the morning session with Valtteri Bottas. Yes, different conditions, different tyres, different fuel loads, but it was much stronger today from Charles. And Ferrari, slowly over this second week, I think have been just alluding to the fact their car isn't as dreadful as they made out in the first week. We still don't know a lot, and I think it's fair to say they're probably behind Mercedes a little bit, but I don't think they're far off. I still do believe, and I've been saying this throughout the winter, I said it all at the end of last season, and I still hold that belief now. I think we're going to have a three-way fight for this championship in terms of the constructors and the drivers. I think we could have a real spicy season so far. Maybe I'm just getting too hyped that the season's back, and maybe Drive to Survive has got that over-dramatic mode in my brain ticking today, but Ferrari looking good is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, Lewis Hamilton, 90 laps. Yeah, we probably should get back to the actual statistics. 90 laps for Lewis Hamilton, 71 for Esteban Ocon. So that's his final running in the Renault for Esteban until Melbourne. He's not had a bad start to the year and seems comfortable in the car. Seems to be getting along really well with Daniel Ricciardo. And I think he's a kind of driver that's just really relishing the fact he's back in Formula 1 and the fact that he's going to be racing in 2 weeks' time. I'm really looking forward to see not only what Ocon can do against Ricciardo, but how quickly he's going to be able to get in that scrapping mode in that midfield. Because we've seen in the past, drivers that have taken a year out, or a few races out even, sometimes it takes a little while just to get used to that car again, used to wheel-to-wheel racing. But drivers that can just nail it straight away, are the classy drivers. The ones that are going to do special things in their career. And I personally, at the moment, feel I've not seen enough from Esteban Ocon. And while some people think he's world championship potential, other drivers and other fans believe perhaps he's not destined for stardom, I kind of find myself in the middle. I think definitely if he has a strong season, he could be right there with Ricciardo. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. And I'm also really looking forward to see Ocon versus Perez once again. I think Renault and Racing Point could be close on track this year. So seeing that more than intense rivalry re-establish itself in 2020. That's going to be so tasty. It's going to be a bit insane. McLaren, Carlos Sainz, P8, 159 laps. 6 more than Sergio Perez. So you can see that today, not only were we seeing the quickest times overall, but a majority of drivers putting in their most laps of the season so far as well. So some real sweaty boys and girls out there, some real tryhards out there on the track today. But 159 for Carlos Sainz is very impressive indeed. And whilst I don't want to give too many things away today, because I do want to try and sit back for a few days, try and analyse data from the teams, try and understand some more press releases, look at some data that more experienced journalists have been able to create, and then try and give you a better picture in my full testing analysis. So I don't want to say too much at the moment, but I do feel that McLaren, Racing Point and Renault are in a tight battle in that midfield this year. So Carlos Sainz putting in those laps at the end of the day, and McLaren have gone a full testing period, causing no red flags. I cannot tell you. I think ever since I've been watching Formula 1, that's been a thing. That's been a huge factor. And off the top of my head, I believe McLaren and Racing Point were the only two teams not to cause a red flag this weekend. Not bad. I really do have a good feeling about the midfield this season. I think it's going to be juicy, and I think it's going to be closer to that top 3 once again. Of course, law of diminishing returns, Racing Point helps as well, try and close that gap up. But sadly, the man who finished behind them today, George Russell, I still think they're a little way off, though 143 laps, another ridiculously good stint from George and for Williams today. I think they've closed up. I really do believe that. Their car and the feedback that we have been allowed to see, that we're privy to, seems positive. And whilst they're going to be realistic, they're not going to be fighting for the title, for podiums, for regular points, I would imagine. They seem quite buoyant. And that's not something I've said about Williams for a long, long time. And I find myself feeling that maybe they could be in this lower pack with Haas, who themselves have really failed. I mean, Grosjean P11, Magnussen P13. Magnussen only 25 laps, had an issue in the afternoon. The team decided not to take the car out for much laps in the end. They supposedly had fixed the issue, but they left it. They were happy to pack up. They felt they had done enough, but I believe they are the team that have done the least laps overall. And again, we'll have to wait a couple of days to the entire tallies to be meticulously counted. Fair play, I get it. But from the rough numbers we've got, Haas have done the least laps. And when you consider the struggles they had last season, very much a focal point on Netflix Drive to Survive, I'm a little bit worried. But I also would say, I feel they've really not put down any kind of statement laps just yet. I mean, the gap isn't ridiculously far behind. Grosjean on the C4, 0.8 away from Bottas's best time, but Grosjean was very, very early on in the morning. So that's when I try and say that it's really hard to compare fastest laps. So I wouldn't be scared just yet, Haas fans, but I feel Haas and McLaren, for me, have been the two teams that have yet to show their cards just yet. The driver I'm kind of missing out in all of this is Danny Kvyat, who finished P10, a whopping 157 laps. Another driver absolutely smashing it today. AlphaTauri, I got it right that time. I'm not sure how I place them on the grid. I really think they're going to have a season a little bit like they had last year, where some weekends they'll show up and perhaps be at the front of that midfield, but other weekends that perhaps doesn't suit the car so much, I think we'll go a little bit further back into the midfield. And in defence of Tracing Point, that AlphaTauri is very similar to last year's Red Bull. The Haas is very similar to last year's Ferrari. So even though it's a good meme, Tracing Point, you'd expect AlphaTauri and Haas to be able to be fighting with them. So if Racing Point themselves have got a much bigger gap over those two teams, fair play to them. Fair play. And the final team I have not yet mentioned, well, I'll talk about Albon as well in a moment, but the final team I have not yet mentioned, Alfa Romeo, another team I think have really failed to state their intent for this season. Of course, it could be Kimi Raikkonen's last year. Antonio Giovinazzi's got a lot to prove, and Raikkonen on the final day, 115 laps. But if you look at it face value, this is a team that finished at the top of the times twice over winter testing. Once with Kimi Raikkonen in the first week, and a second time with Robert Kubica in the second week. So I really find it hard to judge, and that's why I don't want to go too crazy just yet with predictions, like some people are, because I think we need to learn a little bit more, and ultimately, we're not going to know anything until the first race of the season. But yes, I did want to quickly mention Alex Albon, only 59 laps completed in the morning, a few more issues behind the scenes with Red Bull. The brakes supposedly stopped working in the afternoon as well for Verstappen. Albon himself had a bit of an excursion into the gravel, did really well getting out of the gravel trap at the third sector. But apart from that, apart from some okay lap times, it was a quiet day. A few spins early on in the morning, but that was it. No red flags, except when they were cleaning up Alex Albon, and that just took us into lunchtime anyway, so wasn't really a proper red flag. Times, whilst they were good, and again, the majority of teams got personal bests, you can still see in the bottom left-hand corner, Valtteri Bottas on day 3 had the best lap time overall. So I find myself a little bit disappointed in the final day, but I'm super hyped, super buzzing. 2 weeks to go until the first race of the season. Drive to Survive is here. I'm not going to do any reviews. I know a few people have asked for that, and I might potentially explore some of the themes that they did, try and put a bit more clarity on some of the situations for some of the newer fans. So if you are one of the over 5,000 people that have joined the team this month, first of all, welcome. I've not really had chance to say hello, but thank you for joining. I hope you enjoy the content over 2020. And yeah, I try and focus my content on you, the super sweaties like myself that love Formula 1 and want to know every nitty-gritty detail. But I also like to cater for some of the new guys in the sport as well. So there's a bit of a mix on this channel. And yes, if you've got any queries about Drive to Survive, feel free. Twitter, Instagram, in the comments below. Happy days. That's it for testing. We're done. I don't need to do any more of these grids. Fantastic. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the content for winter 2020. You all seem to love the intro, so I might do something similar for the season as well. I'll have a little play over the next few weeks. Not long to go. Formula E tomorrow as well, if you are interested, and I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you are new, feel free to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.